What is gut science, microbiome, and why is it important for our health?
Well, that's a pretty big question to start with. So the gut microbiome, and everybody is interested in gut health, but I think there's a little bit of information lacking around what it actually is, where it's located, and what it can actually do. And you know, you're a better parent, you're a better partner, you're just better at life when you're feeling good, and that's what I want people to feel that too. And we all deserve to feel that. We just need a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more understanding of ourselves.
Explain a little bit the relationship between the microbiome, gut, and mental health, and what effects that does it have in the brains. The coming episode is with Angela Genoni. Angela is a certified nutritionist. She earned her bachelor's degree in nutrition and food science in 2005. She holds a first-class honors degree in health science and completed her PhD in 2018, focusing on the effects of low carbohydrate diets and the gut microbiome. After being a lecturer and academic and working for several years in other industries, she decided her passion was sharing her love for the human body, science, and gut bacteria with the rest of the world. She is now active as a consultant and founder of Gut Science, where her team provides bespoke health programs with a unique focus on the gut and the power of the microbiome. Enjoy the conversation. Maybe just one thing. If you enjoy the conversation, please give it a like at the end or follow our channel. It would help us a lot to invite more interesting guests and to talk about more interesting topics. Thank you very much, and here's the conversation. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's a super clear topic that we are going to talk about today. I really love that. And and also I think we should just start with the basics. What is gut science, microbiome, and why is it important for our health?
Well, that's a pretty big question to start with. So the gut microbiome, and everybody is interested in gut health, but I think there's a little bit of information lacking around what it actually is, where it's located, and what it can actually do. And that's my job. So that's what I'm passionate about, sharing my knowledge around the gut microbiome and helping others really harness the power of what their gut is capable of. And I guess the first step is to understand that when we talk about the gut microbiome, we're really talking about all the bacterial species that live in our colon. And in the past, I think science has really been, or has thought that the bacterial populations in other parts of the body are not important, like the mouth and the stomach and the small intestine. Mm-hmm. But they really do play a huge role along the whole digestive tract. But what we're really looking at in gut science is the bacterial populations that live in the colon specifically. And that's really what I want to get across to people, because the populations that live there can influence just about every part of our body.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, for someone that never heard about this before, including, I heard about this before, but I don't know so much about this before we got in touch actually. Why is it so important for people to learn more about this? Because I feel that, I never learned so much about this before, and then it might be as seen as not that important or something. I don't know, if maybe it's some new discovery.
Yeah, I think we need to know more about it, because our well-being is really centered on our gut microbiome. If you've ever been out to the pub in the evening and had fast food, you know that you don't feel optimal the next day. And a lot of that is mediated through the gut microbiome. You're not feeding those little guys in your gut the correct food. And so that's reflected in how you feel the next day. And there's a lot of research supporting the way we feel in terms of our mood, mm-hmm. but also our productivity, our long-term health risks, many other chronic conditions are or have been and are linked with the gut microbiome. So I think if we all understand a little bit more about how it works and what it can do and how we can tailor our own nutrition to feed our microbes appropriately, then we can all start being a bit more intuitive with what we're eating and how we're feeling and looking after ourselves and taking that care and love and respect for our bodies.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, over the years, I think there is much more information available about being more healthy, what nutrition is good for you, what is not good for you. But it has a lot to do with how we feel. So, what are some examples of nutrition that can be a problem that most people maybe didn't realize before? You have some examples of that?
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind is processed food or ultra processed food. And there's been, a lot of media lately about the risks of chronic ultra processed food consumption. And we know that food, as food in packets that we might have as a treat. But unfortunately, a lot of that consumption is more than a treat scenario. Like we're eating that stuff every day in quantities that our body hasn't ever seen before. And so it's not surprising that we don't feel good or we're not doing well in terms of health outcomes when we're eating that much ultra processed food. And a lot of the reason that food is not great for us is because it's not really providing any food for our microbiome. A lot of the fiber and the good nutrients that was in the original food is no longer there. And we're left with sort of refined carbohydrates and sugars and additives that our body is not used to.
Yeah. So we're basically eating stuff, I would call it, for pleasure, for the taste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And I hope we see some action on this in the coming years, because ultra processed food, in my mind, is akin to smoking. Like it's a massive problem, and at the moment it's largely squared on the individual to make those choices for themselves. So I guess my approach is to try and provide individuals with that education about how their body works and the types of food and fuel that the gut microbiome needs to function properly, and then how that can change your own health outcomes. But on the flip side to that, we also need, the governments across the world to step in and say to the food companies, hey, this stuff is not okay. We know that this is linked with many chronic health conditions now. There's a large body of evidence. What are we going to do about it? So there's two aspects to improving the nutrition that's available just by that particular types of food groups.
Yeah, definitely the government can play an important role into this, although we know that these kind of political decisions, they are very influenced by the industry itself. So it's not so easy to make that change, or expecting from the government to really change something in the near future. Can you talk a little bit about symptoms? Because as long as you live and do certain things in your life and you don't feel any friction or any problems, or you don't have any pain, that people are not going to change anything. And sometimes there are some symptoms that are maybe related to this kind of problem, but people don't really realize. So can you give some examples of symptoms?
There's lots of different types of symptoms, and you know what, people might not actually realize that there's anything wrong until we fix their diet, and then they actually go, wow, I feel better. So I think people get caught up with their own normal and think that that's normal, but we change the diet, we increase the diversity of fiber intake, and suddenly they're not feeling bloated anymore, or they're not feeling all gassy anymore. So there's two types of sort of actual symptoms that you might get if you've got a bit of disturbance to your gut microbiome, and it's called dysbiosis. And so you can have an acute dysbiosis where you might have had antibiotics or something, or you've had some dodgy takeaway food, which has really disrupted the ratios of bacteria in your gut, and you feel really uncomfortable. You might be bloated, you might be gassy, you might have diarrhea, you might have constipation, and that's kind of like a, but it passes, it goes away, in a week or so, or 2 weeks. It's short term. But then we have a more sort of chronic dysbiosis where it goes on. It's people constantly struggle with it, and they end up being diagnosed with things like irritable bowel syndrome because that type of dysbiosis doesn't go away. And sometimes even if they get a stool test done, there isn't really an obvious cause for the dysbiosis that they might be having. And that's where it's important for people to be educated so that they can read their own body and they can start learning about all the different types of dietary fibres, and then they can really start to hone in and understand which fibres are good for their gut and which fibres they might need to try and help things feel more comfortable. Because the microbiome changes very rapidly. We know that it can change within a couple of days of starting a new diet, but it might not be entirely comfortable until things settle after a week or two.
Okay. Can you also maybe explain the impacts on weight? I can imagine if you change your diet, and I hear your explanation about processed foods and other diets or other products that are not very healthy, that it can have an impact on your weight. And so I'm curious, actually, how is it related?
The microbiome can play a huge role in your weight and the ability of your body to maintain its body weight, or to put on weight, or to lose weight. So we know that there's a lot of literature around that. But I think one of the things that's a bit of a problem in today's society is that we're so focused on our weight and we forget to actually look after ourselves properly, because we've got that end goal in mind that all we want to do is lose 5 kilos, or we want to lose 10 kilos. And perhaps we might be cutting calories or eating the wrong types of foods, like replacement shakes or something, to get to that point, but we're not nourishing the microbiome in the meantime. And so I'm really of the approach that the weight is a side effect of feeling good and feeling healthy. And if we focus on your nutrition being adequate and adequate to feed the microbiome, so that you feel good and you wake up feeling like you've got a bit of energy, and you feel like that you might have enough energy to get out for a walk because your microbiome's going well, then the weight loss kind of happens by itself. And that's where we want to get to, because that means you've developed this self-love with yourself, that you want to nourish your body properly. And nourishing your body properly means that over time, if you do have excess weight, that it'll just come off by itself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a much healthier approach for most people, particularly women, to really focus on the health aspect rather than focusing on weight, because it kind of has quite a negative connotation to it in your mind. When you're focused on losing weight, you can be pretty hard on yourself, and it's not a positive experience.
Yeah. But actually what you're saying is that the programs that you provide, they can have like a direct impact on your weight. If people want to lose weight.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I guess I've really stressed to people that it's a byproduct of feeling healthy, and the health is the health is why people are there, and the health is why people would choose to do my program, because they want to improve their longevity, or they want to be able to run with the kids, or to feel like they're not suffering with continued gut problems for long periods of time.
Yeah. Can you then also say that most diets for losing weight are gut friendly, or not really?
Oh, it depends on the diet. And then again, it's quite individual. So, my research in my PhD was centered on people who were on a paleo or /keto diet. And whilst my results showed that it wasn't necessarily the best for the gut microbiome, I certainly wouldn't hesitate if somebody or one of my clients wanted to try that, as long as they really incorporated the diverse fibers that they needed to include to ensure that the gut stayed healthy in the meantime. And I think if we're going on any sort of diet, we really need to have a gut first approach with any of the dietary patterns. And if the dietary pattern is comprised of primarily whole foods, and that's where you're getting your fiber from, then you can follow any diet that you like.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just wondering that's actually kind of basic question. So the gut, where is it exactly? Because you have the stomach and you have like the whole digestion system, but where is it exactly?
I should have brought a model for you. So the colon is where the microbiome sits, and it's basically the last stop before we get to the poo exit at the other end. And so it's basically like the compost bin of what you've eaten, and it's where the leftovers go. So you eat food, it goes through your mouth, has some enzymes in it that start to break down the food. Your small intestine is where, well, your stomach first, but then your small intestine is where your human cells get to work, and they take up everything that they can possibly use from those food items. But then what's left over is what goes to the microbiome in the colon, and that's where they live, and that's where they get to work, and that's where most of the interaction between our immune system and all those good byproducts that the microbiome produce are found.
Yeah. You mentioned immune system. That's actually one of the questions that I had as well. What impact does it have in the immune system if you actually start taking more care of your gut microbiome?
Well, we know that having more dietary fiber, and this can vary from patient to patient about what types of dietary fiber, but more dietary fiber promotes a more diverse gut microbiome. And then in turn, the bacteria that are eating those fibers, they produce short-chain fatty acids. And those short-chain fatty acids are quite anti-inflammatory. So they really help to sort of dampen that immune response, and they can really help with not only gut inflammation but systemic inflammation as well. And we used to think that those short-chain fatty acids stayed in the digestive system, but we now know that they are absorbed or can be absorbed into the bloodstream, and they can have like quite far-reaching effects across the whole body. So they can reduce inflammation everywhere.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little bit about your story. So you're studying this already for quite some years. How has that evolved over the years, this knowledge? Or was it always there?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah,
it's an interesting question because when I started my honours project, there was really no research around the paleo diet at that time. And I had a group of women who I put on the diet for 4 weeks, and they all lost weight, but all of them, or a lot of them, reported gut side effects. And so that really wasn't well understood at that time. And so my supervisor then at the time suggested, oh, why don't for your PhD you look at the gut? And so I was actually, to be fair, I was a bit hesitant because I knew that meant playing with poo samples in the lab. And I was like, well, I'm not sure, do I want to do that? But I did it. And you know what? It was one of the best experiences of my life. And I would hands down go back and do another PhD any day of the week because I just loved the journey. But I guess my journey over that time has been that I've become a lot more open to people's own journeys with their diets. Everyone's got an opinion on food because we all eat, let's face it. And so you can see a lot of people on social media that give advice because that's what's relevant for them and they share what's worked for them. But I think it's important as health professionals to really be mindful of the journey that other people are on too. They're not at the same stage as us, and they have different requirements with food and different tastes and different preferences and different beliefs and different dietary patterns. And I can show them all the science in the world, but at the end of the day, that's got to be their decision. And over time, my ability to have empathy towards that has really evolved. And And I think as health professionals, that's only a good thing because, we learn and we grow and we reflect as we get a bit older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think in the behaviors of food is like one thing, you need food to live, for energy to get through the day. And then the other thing is that people consume food actually for pleasure. So
Yeah.
the challenge is there to find a good mix, I think, because it would not be realistic to say, okay, yeah, let's just start only eating food that is good for our health and just to get energy and get through the day, because we're still looking for this food that gives us pleasure. So is that included in the advice that you give? Like, okay, you eat chocolate, you eat candies, all these kind of things. Let's replace that by things that are also giving pleasure, but are also good for the gut. And can you give some examples of that?
And you know what? I think that is one of the huge parts of, the books on the blue zones and the people that are the longest lived people in the world. They have a really healthy diet, and there's no doubt about that. They eat really well. They eat lots of plants and lots of unprocessed food. But the key thing with the culture that goes along with their food is that they prepare their food together and they eat together, and it's a social event, and it's prepared with love, and they eat together with love. And when we eat in the car or we're not sitting down as a family together, then that's where that step is missing. And I'm really big on that in my program and my advice that I give, because we have to live a life as well as follow, a healthy diet. So, you need to be kind to yourself. If you're out with your friends, then don't have these, strict rules in your head that you must follow, because that's not actually healthy once you think about the mental side of things as well. So striking a balance is what is really important for people to remember. And we can easily get very caught up with that healthy food mentality and forget that food is a very social affair and should be enjoyed and prepared with love.
So what you're actually saying is that pleasure should be replaced by the relationship with people, actually. So you're consuming food and with people around you, and the pleasure should come from that, and not from the food as such that you're consuming. Oh, interesting.
Yes, and I guess that the food is what brings you all together.
Yeah.
You might have your friends over for dinner, but so the food is maybe what's brought you there. You've invited them for dinner, but the pleasurable part is actually sharing it with your friends, not so much the actual food. Yeah, it helps obviously if you've cooked a nice dinner, but it's not the key event. And yeah, eating the food in a social way is a key part of that longevity that's observed in other cultures where they have the healthy diet, but they also have the real key social and cultural component to go along with that.
I just think we don't give enough time to that anymore. We are just busy, and we're hungry, we need to eat. And
I totally agree. I think I'm very busy. I'm very busy. I have 3 teenage boys, and I drive them around a lot everywhere every day. And we might all be home at different times, but it's one thing that's really important to me is that we all sit down to dinner together. And if that's at 8:00 because we've all been out, then so be it. But we have dinner together, and that's just one thing that you can do and it's a nice chance to connect with each other again too.
But that's one time a day. But you eat more than one time a day, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, you can be a busy day, but if you just set that one time aside, then, at least you know that you've got that time to connect over dinner.
Yeah, definitely. And I hear that quite often, actually. A lot of families do that in the morning for breakfast, sitting together if the times are synchronizing, and otherwise at the end of the day, definitely. But most people eat 3 times a day, 2 times a day, 4 times a day. So what we do with the other time, the ideal word would be that you can sit around with your colleagues at work, and then you have a great dinner together and socialize and everything. But that doesn't really happen that much, I think.
No, it doesn't. And I guess that's where, I would tailor some advice for each person on, actually implementing some strategies into people's day to help them work out what might work best for them to improve the quality of the food intake during the day. And, we don't want to go in and make hundreds of changes all at once, because we know that, that's overwhelming and not sustainable. But, trying to just tweak one thing each week or every 2 weeks to, plan your meals better, or work out what time you're going into the office, and making sure you've got groceries at home to ensure that you can take something healthy with you for lunch if you're going to the office. Those are like key strategies that, they're not easy to implement, but if you do them slowly, they can be done quite sustainably.
Yeah, yeah. Can you tell something about fruits? Because I have tried to integrate, and I'm still doing that, fruits as my snacks, actually. So as my pleasure food. It's not easy to do. It takes some time, but it works at some point. So can you explain a little bit about that? Is that something that is good? Is that a good habit? Is that good for your gut? Or also are there also people that are having problems with that?
Fruit is fantastic for your gut. Firstly, there's lots of different types of dietary fibre in fruit. So, yeah, I know the recommendations in Australia are for 2 serves of fruit a day, but if you eat 5 serves a day, I say go for it, because it's replacing you from eating other, potentially junk foods. So, fruit is inherently a great snack to have. I guess the only issues for some people are that some fruits are higher in some types of fibre than others. So things like pears or, overripe bananas, they can cause issues for some people's tummies because of the different ratio of fermentable fibres. But those are things that we can work out in moderation for each client, because you still need to try and get some fruit, because the types of fibre that are in there are actually hugely beneficial for the microbes.
Yeah. It makes me think about something, and I have to ask you, like, is it true that fruits are not good first thing in the morning because of the sugar? Or is that just a myth that I hear somewhere?
Yeah, it's one of those myths going around. If you're eating the whole fruit, like by itself, then I see no issue with it. I guess if you're blending it up into a smoothie, then the glycemic index could be a little bit higher, but it wouldn't be too significant as long as you're eating all of that fibre that goes along with it. But I guess the only people that would need to be concerned about that if they have issues regulating blood sugar. So someone who's diabetic might need to be careful of doing that. But fruit, if you feel like eating fruit first thing in the morning, then go for it.
Okay. But then orange juice might be a problem, or not?
Yeah, juice is something I would never recommend by itself anyway, because you're getting the nice flavour of the fruit but without the fibre. And the fibre or the pulp that's left over is actually the bit that I want you to have. So your gut microbes want that bit. So yeah, don't throw that bit away. You need that bit.
So what you're saying is, like, you would never recommend people to consume juices then, or is it only in the morning?
Oh, juice I wouldn't.
Never.
I wouldn't have. No. I guess personally I do have juice sometimes, because I do a lot of running, and if I've been for a long run, then the sugars, the simple sugars, are quite nice.
Yeah.
But generally for everyday people, no, juice is not necessary.
Okay.
Eat the fruit and drink the water.
Okay.
It's easy. Like it ends up adding up the calories pretty quickly too, because you don't feel full. When you're not having the fibre, you don't feel full after having a glass of juice.
Yeah.
So you can drink the glass of juice and still have a full meal, but the calories have, blown out then, because you've, because of the sugars in the juice.
Yeah, yeah. Is that the same with smoothies, or there is some fibre in there, right?
Yeah, they still have the fibre of the original fruit in there. Yeah. So I guess it does depend. I have heard of people putting like whole avocados and stuff in smoothies, and then wonder why they're not losing weight. You need to still be mindful of what you're putting in there, but at least there's still the fibre in there. So it can go. They can be beneficial.
Okay, so a whole avocado is is not good for losing weight. Okay, I have to remember that.
No, not for most people. Like for a very active male, probably not a problem.
Yeah.
But for small females like me, no.
Okay, yeah. So a combination of a banana and an avocado in a smoothie, that's probably too much.
Probably too much, yeah. Like if you like avocado and want to put avocado in a smoothie, then a quarter avocado or an eighth of an avocado
Yeah.
is probably plenty.
Yeah. I do that mostly.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you also explain a little bit the relationship between the microbiome, gut, and mental health, and what effects that does it have in the brains, for example?
Yeah, there's a lot of great research coming out now about how people who have more whole foods in their diet have lower risk of things like anxiety and depression. And that's really, it's really common sense when you stop and think about all the research that's been previous around the gut microbiome and how they work and the types of anti-inflammatory compounds they produce. So what we do know is that a good proportion of the serotonin that makes us feel good is produced, the precursor compound for that is produced in the gut. And also melatonin, which we produce at nighttime to go to sleep, is also partly originated from the gut. So if we're having a healthy gut microbiome, those regulatory processes can work more efficiently, and we over time have less risk of developing anxiety and depression. And I should point out that if you've already been diagnosed with those conditions, you should always follow the advice of your doctor in terms of medication, but a healthy diet and restoring some microbiome diversity can go hand in hand to help you on your journey to recovery.
Yeah. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about probiotics and prebiotics? Is that something that is important for the gut health?
This is an interesting question, and I'll just quickly explain the difference between the two because they are quite different concepts. So prebiotic is food that we give the bacteria. So we've already got our microbiome in our gut, and the prebiotics are specific types of fiber that feed specific species of bacteria. So you might get a supplement which has prebiotic written on it, and that is because it feeds a certain type of bacteria. And to be classed as a prebiotic, the type of bacteria that it feeds has to have been found to be a beneficial one. So we don't want to be giving you a prebiotic that promotes the growth of some pathogenic strain in your gut, because that wouldn't be good for anybody. So yeah, prebiotics are a special class of dietary fibers, whereas probiotics are actual live or freeze-dried, partly dead bacteria. So taking those orally, they need to make their way through the digestive system and be able to take up residence in the colon. And for some health conditions, they have been shown to be useful. But for healthy people, the literature is a bit conflicted, because if you've already got a healthy gut, there's limited benefit to taking a probiotic. And then the other complication is there are so many different strains of bacteria that you can buy as a probiotic capsule that it is really difficult to decipher which one might be good and which one might be not so good. So for healthy people, my advice is you don't need to spend money on those types of things. You're better off feeding up the bacteria that you've got with good range of dietary fibers, and then you sort of create your own probiotics by growing those good ones yourselves.
Yeah. Is that a problem in general that we have if we are interested in supplementing ourselves? The supplements is like a big industry as well, and myself also, I have like a lot of doubts around that I don't really know what am missing. I'm afraid actually that if I'm gonna take supplements that it's gonna have like a negative impact on my body. So I actually almost never take supplements or took it in the past even. So yeah, maybe it's good to explain a little bit more about that.
I'm of the same opinion of you, actually, because yes, whilst there might be some evidence for some supplements, most of the research is done in sort of a clinical trial setting where they have a set period of time where they observe people. So it might be, for a supplement study, it could be 4 weeks that they're observing people or observing the effect. So I guess my question is, what happens after 5 years of taking that supplement? Like, are there any long-term impacts? And for that reason, I tend to also steer clear of supplements myself because, one, they're very expensive, and I have a bit of a minimalistic view too. We should be able to get everything we need from our diet if we structure our diet properly. And in fact, our gut bacteria, that's all they want, is just a simple diet, and they're happy with that. So we don't need to bombard our gut with all sorts of different supplements. Obviously, there's a case-by-case basis where, yes, they might be necessary here and there, but generally, I would recommend people save their money. And I've been contacted already by a couple of people wanting me to promote different products, and I'm just like, no, we don't need to go down that path. We've got enough knowledge with what we know in science that at this point, we don't need to be taking supplements as well.
Yeah. And that's obviously contradictory to what they actually say. So they are going to tell you actually why supplements are very important.
Yes.
Because certain things are just missing in your food, or certain things are missing in the air, or you don't have enough sun, you don't have enough this and that. I don't know, is that true? Is that not true? Because our food industry is just very... Is developed in certain kind of ways, like it became more in a way artificial. It's more difficult to find really biological food that is not treated in any ways, and it's all super expensive. It's not for everyone. So, and that's where these companies are really playing on.
They play into our fears on those things because, we don't like to think that we might be eating pesticides or microplastics or, all of those things that could be in our food or that are missing from our food. But even things like frozen vegetables, people are frightened to add frozen vegetables to their diet because they're frozen. But the reality is that most growers actually have on-site freezers, and so they actually snap frozen at time of harvest, and often those frozen broccolis can have more nutritional value than a fresh one that's been sitting in your fridge for a week. So we need to weigh it up, constantly. We don't want to be... It's always better to choose the fresh fruit and vegetables. You're going to have a lower risk of many chronic diseases if you choose the fresh fruit and vegetables. Yes, they might have some pesticides on them occasionally, so just rinse them before you eat them, and then you're reducing your risk of having any type of ongoing contamination. But most of your listeners perhaps are in countries where pesticide use and contamination issues are very well regulated, and I know in Australia we're very well regulated with things like pesticides. So it's not something I want people to worry about, because then they eat things in packets then because they think that's a healthier choice, when actually we need to go back and eat the fruit and vegetables first.
Okay. So what you're actually saying is then, like, the fruits and vegetables you find in the supermarket, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to go to special markets where you have like the fresh fruits from the farm and the biological stuff and all this kind of things. So
yes, if you can afford to do that and you want to do that, then go for it, because
does it make a big difference though?
Not nutritionally, no. There hasn't been a study that's been groundbreaking in terms of organic food being any better than standard grown food. Yes, our food is, the tomatoes are bigger and they might be sweeter now than they were 50 years ago, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're any nutritionally more inferior than what we had before. And research will show that they're not. They're quite comparable. So we need to just try not to get taken in by some of those fear-mongering by the food industry or particular industries to try and make us buy the things that are more expensive, which, let's face it, most of us can't afford that. I know fruit and vegetables is so expensive here.
Yeah.
And, I would always encourage people to eat fruit and vegetables no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one thing to say about that. Like, I feel if I eat like fruits or vegetables from farms, it tastes different.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. You're getting it fresh, and
Yeah.
it hasn't been through the wholesale system for a few days. Yeah, so if you've got access to do that, then absolutely fantastic. You can have a new appreciation for how food is grown. And actually, I had a trip to Italy for some conferences a few years ago, and that was one thing that really struck me when I was there was the localness of the food, and it was all locally grown and presented in little market stalls in the towns, and it would have been picked that morning and could be cooked that night. And it's just a shame that we've lost some of that, but nonetheless what we have is still better than not having it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You have a program running where people can actually learn more about the gut health, and including probably nutrition plans and things like that. I'm actually wondering, who are the people that are looking for this kind of information? There's a lot of people that probably is listening to this podcast. Some people resonate, other people don't resonate. People say, I'm good, okay, sometimes I feel bloated, but it's next day is over, it's all fine. At what point actually do people start coming to you to get more information and to learn to become more healthy?
I guess I have two main types of clients, and the first, people that have kind of had a few gut issues their whole life, and they're a bit fed up with it. They get told different things by different doctors, and they're just not sure what to do and what direction to take with it. So that's where, I can come in and really help them understand properly what the whole thing is, what it's doing, how the whole digestive system works, what the microbiome is doing, and then they can sort of have a bit of empowerment then to take control of their own health journey if they've had issues. And then I guess we have other people who are, they might be busy professionals, and they just want to learn to be healthy. They don't want to follow another diet. They want to be able to play with the grandkids in 10 years. They don't want to be, stuck on a diet bandwagon. And those are, really great clients, because they really want to learn how things work, and they really want to they're really motivated to make the changes to ensure that they can get to that end goal.
Yeah. Yeah. What are the big promises here actually of the program? What is like the end goal? Is it like feeling better, having more energy? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, the feeling good is the empowerment, I think, is my key takeaway from what I offer. And mainly that comes from the knowledge and understanding that you gain about how the body and the digestive system and the microbiome works. It gives you that empowerment to take control of your health journey. Like, you don't need to be told what to eat, because you've got the knowledge now. You can work that out yourself. You can work out which fibers are best for your tummy. You can work out which foods maybe are not so good for your tummy, and having that empowerment is a real key takeaway. But along with that empowerment brings a sense of self-respect and self-love that carries on and overflows into other areas of your life. And I know, I'm a parent, and I'm sure there's many other parents out there. When you feel good yourself, you're a better parent, you're a better partner, you're just better at life when you're feeling good. And that's what I want people to feel, that too. And we all deserve to feel that. We just need a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more understanding of ourselves to get there.
Yeah. So how does it work? Do you work with is it like with a checklist? Is it like, okay, let's try this. What impact does it have on my body? Do I feel good, not good? And then you go over a whole list of items, I would say, in nutrition. How does it work? How does it work practically?
I have a different approach. So my strategy is to provide. So my program is 8 weeks, and in that there's a weekly class of around 1.5 hours where it's an interactive session where I provide the knowledge and the tools. So there's, the first one is around an introduction to the microbiome, and then we go into, the macro and micronutrients and how they interact with the microbiome, and then we look at dietary fibers and exercise and polyphenols, and we delve into, quite in depth how all of those things can impact the microbiome. And then as you're taking on that knowledge, one, you can ask me questions because I come along with the program. I'm not just throwing some course at you that you have to do in your own time. We can chat about things as you go along. And so when we talk about a specific food component, you can ask, oh, hey, I've had issues with that before. Why might that be? And then we can talk about it. But also there's a couple of coaching sessions in there where we really look into delve into mindset and how we're talking to ourselves about our body. And the last thing, and I think this is where people can really get the most value out of learning this stuff, is they can have that one-on-one time with me, which, yes, that's the time where we can go through individual requirements on making sure you've got your nutrition down pat to meet your own nutrition requirements, but also, talking about individual foods that might be an issue, or helping you get motivated to make your change for this week. So I'm not going to overwhelm you with changing your whole diet in 1 week. That's not going to be sustainable. So I'll give you a target or some homework for next week to go and find one thing that you want to work on and come back and we talk about that next week. So it's a transformation, really. It's not just a throwing knowledge at you type of program.
Yeah. Something that comes up while you're explaining it, and also previously in the conversation, is there is this kind of, I think it's a diet, it's Ayurveda. You know what? You know that? So
Ayurveda, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I don't know so much about this. Can you give your opinions on that? Because that's also like learning more about the nutrition, choosing more what you eat, what effect does it have in the body. It's for me, it's very similar as what you are explaining, but not really focusing on the gut, I think.
Yeah, I think the Ayurvedic principles are a little bit more focused on, creating that energy balance within the body.
Exactly.
And yeah, so I think they go hand in hand, and I'm certainly, like, if someone came to me and that was their way of thinking and they had those principles in their life, then we work with that. I don't tell you to do something that you're not in line with or doesn't suit your belief system. So we work together on that. And if there's some foods that are not in, an Ayurvedic type principle that I think might be good alternatives, then we come up with a solution that meets both of our requirements. So, and there's going to be lots of other people that have different beliefs on different foods for different reasons. So yeah, we encourage and work with any dietary pattern or belief system.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there is so
much. And I think that, and people do get fired up about diets, and I have been quite big on that when people have joined my Facebook group. I'm like, one of the initial questions I have there is like, I don't promote any one diet because I don't want to start diet wars.
Yeah.
We don't, people can get very fired up about what they eat, and that's great. That's fine for them to have that diet, but we just be open-minded to other people's opinions too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, there is so much information out there, right? And so many people have different opinions, and even out of research and like really experts. It's interesting how difficult it then is as a consumer actually to really believe what is true, what is right, what is not right, what is true. I think it's all about how you feel about this, and just test and experiment and just make up your own mind and decide for yourself, right?
Yes, and I think when you have the knowledge about how your body's working, you do have that empowerment to make that decision yourself, and you'll know from your own experience with your gut over time after you've done the program that, you just know that that's not going to work for you, or that, yeah, that might be worth a try, so you can have that knowledge or enough knowledge to work that out. And I agree that the media and the media coverage of science can be a bit tabloid in nature too. And, some papers get a lot of media coverage that when you go and actually look at the research paper, it was a very poorly controlled study, or they didn't do their stats very well, or it was only 10 people, or, those are the things that I know. But the general consumer doesn't always see the facts behind some of the coverage that comes out, and that's really can be very overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, still the biggest topic in nutrition is still losing weight. People feel very attracted to this kind of messages. It's a big industry in general. So people that feel that need to change their nutrition, that need to change their habits, what is the first thing they should look at, I think? What are the first places they should look for information?
I guess this is a tough one. The first thing they should really make sure they're doing is meeting their nutritional requirements. So there's losing weight, and then there's losing weight in an unhealthy way. So you can lose weight in a healthy way by making sure that you can keep yourself accountable by, tracking your calories if you're interested. And there's some good apps around, like MyFitnessPal or a few others where you can, keep yourself, work out how much, calories you actually need. And then you start tracking your intake for a few days, and then you can suddenly see where all your calories are coming from. And chances are that that's the ultra processed food where they sneak in. And they're also the foods, obviously, that don't nourish the gut microbiome very well either. So, the first place to start, I think, is just being accountable for what you're currently eating, and then, try not to make too many changes all at once, because we know that that's not likely to be sustainable over time. So just focus on one small change each week or each fortnight, whatever you're comfortable with. And once you've got that down pat as a new habit, then you can start on a new one. And we all need to move a bit more too. So, eating healthy is one thing, but adding a little bit more incidental activity if you're not active much at all, or upping the activity a bit is really important too. And for older people, we need to be doing some strength training as well.
Is it something that you include also in your programs, or?
I am very big on giving advice around exercise and moving. I have a module in my program around exercise and the gut microbiome, because we know the research is very clear that exercise is hugely beneficial for the gut microbiome. And that is, it seems like a weird thing, like how could just moving your muscles change the bacteria in your gut? But that change in blood flow and the change in markers that are released from your muscles when you exercise have the ability to alter things in the gut, and that is pretty cool. So exercise is a big part of in my program, giving that knowledge so people understand, how good it is. And then obviously when we do the one-on-one coaching, we work out some strategies for actually how to do that in individual situations, because some people find it easier than others.
Okay, yeah. So you do that over a time span of 8 weeks.
Yes.
It's like a combination of knowledge, learning, a combination of with one-on-one coaching or group coaching. Is it one-on-one or is it in group?
The modules are a group, depending on how many we have enrolled at any particular time. But the one-on-one coaching sessions are always just one-on-one. So that's where you can have me to yourself to ask those nitty-gritty questions that maybe you didn't want to ask in a group situation.
Yeah. And does everyone then develops his own new nutrition plan? Is that actually what you have at the end?
I guess nutrition plan is, in my mind, is a set thing, and nutrition and your own nutrition can and should evolve over time. So I provide the tools for people to kind of work that out on themselves. So what might work for them now, and help them feel good and healthy, in 5 years' time when they're at a different life stage, they might need to readjust things. But they have the knowledge now to go ahead and be able to, one, have the mindset to be flexible enough to do that, but two, have the knowledge to, understand that their body needs different things at different times.
Yeah. Okay. So now you have this 8 weeks program running. You are studying this already for a few years. How do you see the future? What's up for you next, actually, around this topic?
I would like to. I'm still a little bit involved with academia. Actually, I still do a little bit of teaching now and again, and I would like to sort of drive a little bit more research in a few areas. There's some good potential projects that I have in mind. So there's that, and also I want to expand gut science a bit too, because there's a lot of scope to improve health in a sustainable, realistic way for most people. And I think everyone's interested in the gut, so let's provide them with the information. I'm not going to go in and tell you what to eat, but if I provide you with the information around your gut, then you can work it out yourself. And I think having that approach is different to what's out there at the moment, and I want to promote that a bit more, because I think that would resonate with people, as opposed to being told what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you said everyone is interested in the guts. I'm still not sure if everybody understands the gut, but with this conversation, this podcast, definitely the people will.
Yeah, it's funny. When you tell someone what you do, yeah, I get stopped and I'm chatting for 20 minutes, because people are so interested in what the gut is and the microbiome. And yes, you're right, the understanding is not there. So I would love to try and fill that gap a little bit.
Yeah.
In a sensible way, of course.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's really good that this information is out there and that you that you provide this, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, is there some last advice, some tips or things you would like to share with the audience that is not mentioned in the conversation?
One good tip I can give you, and it was one of the first posts I did on my Facebook page, actually, was around eating bananas. And a lot of people, we all eat bananas, so everyone loves bananas, but if you have them a little bit greener, so the greener they are, the more prebiotics they have for your gut bacteria.
Okay.
So that's your little take-home tip for today, you don't have to eat them. When they're really green, they're a bit...
Yeah. It really depends on the type of bananas, I think.
Yes, it does. But the greener they are, the more prebiotics they have, and that can have a nice impact on your gut. Just that one simple thing.
Yeah.
So that's my take-home message for today.
Okay.
Try a green banana.
That's interesting. Yeah, but they're not so tasty, right? It's super hard, and then
no, it depends on the level of greenness. It really does.
Yeah.
If any of your listeners have sort of resonated with the topic of having a bit more knowledge on their journey, then I would love to work with them.
Yeah, definitely. Where can people find you? You want them to reach out to you?
I'll pop the website link
definitely.
in the link for the podcast if your listeners are interested. I have a chat booking function in there, so they can book a time with me to have a discussion if they're interested.
Okay, so you do like intake conversations?
Yeah. I would have a chat and make sure that I'm actually suitable fit to work with you.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to promise that I can help you if I think you need further medical advice first.
Yeah. Okay, great. So yeah, I think that everybody that didn't know what gut microbiome was, and I think this conversation was really helpful. I really enjoyed it. I really learned a lot, and I hope that people want to work on that, want to get more knowledge from this, reach out to you. That would be great. And I really would like to thank you for being here, being a guest today. And I wish you a lot of luck with upcoming research, upcoming knowledge sharing, and everything that you do.
Thank you, Henk. It's been a pleasure to chat with you today. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. See ya.